We all have regrets in life. However, it's in a way funny that we are much better at concealing these regrets than acknowledging them and ultimately facing them head on. Now, the question is, how does one fight their regrets head on? Is it actually good to fight regrets? And, well, honestly, how do you not make any more regrets? Well, first of all, one does not necessarily fight their regrets head on. When you fight your regrets head on, well, the only thing that happens, you're kind of making them even bigger. Because there are two ways of actually dealing with something. When you fight with it, you're paying it attention. So technically, instead of freeing yourself from them, you're kind of enforcing them. In this world, there is a principle that is also used by a lot of the great names in the world, and it goes something like this: love me or hate me, but don't ignore me, right? That is why so many people are famous by being either lovable or, they are adorable, or you like them for some reason, or they are just complete jerks and dicks. Why? Because if you love them or if you hate them, it's the same actual thing. You're paying them your attention, right? You're paying your attention to hate them, which means, well, technically you're feeding them with your attention. Where your attention goes, right, your energy flows, right? And if you love them, it's kind of the same thing. It's just that hate is usually more powerful because it's much easier to simply channel on a lower vibrational thought, because lower vibrations kind of always come from ignorance, right? Because ignorance can't raise too much on a scale of, let's say, uh, consciousness, right? And impulses are always short bursts, right? And the problem with them is when they end up in a loop, they kind of end up controlling your whole life. So, how to deal with regrets is, well, first of all, kind of the only important thing to do is stop being ignorant towards your own problems and towards your own self, right? Because a regret means an attachment towards an outcome that didn't end up to be like you wanted. Now, I've been presenting this in previous videos. When you want something, right? Usually a want comes from an aspect of lack. You don't have it, so you want it, right? And want is kind of very synonymous with need. When you need something, you're always gonna react to that, right? Because you want it. So a reaction is technically a need, right? Now, when people are unconscious, all aspects of unconsciousness come from a certain fear. It's always a fear that drives people as unconscious or ignorant, because it's basically the same thing. Why? Well, when you want something and you don't have it, right, you will use all sorts of reasons, right, to fight for it. You're probably gonna think, that very, very deep inside, these usually are the hardest to find, that, well, you fear never having that. Because somewhere inside of you, you have accepted the belief that you're not worthy of anything, right? If you compare, for example, the American comedy with British comedy, British one sounds something like whatever is ever going to be, well, more like philosophy, not comedy. Whatever is there to be in the world, it's definitely not for you, while the American mindset seems to be something aiming towards, if there's gonna be a new president in the country, you yourself can be that, right? So there is a difference in between mindsets, right? Even if neither of the two are necessarily real, because, well, if there's nothing out there specifically for you, why are you alive then? And if there's another president to be, then that could also be you. Well, that's also not true, because the American election goes on very steep let's say pillars, okay, that make sure not everyone gets there, right? That's only a way to keep people in a certain well, state of ignorance, because they end up on the other side of the spectrum, believing that everything can be for them. But if something can be for you, it doesn't mean that it will necessarily be. Then you will also add the flow of distraction, as I call it, because that says if you manifest something enough, well, you may actually have it, or you will actually have it. Now, the point is, you can have 10 people, and they can manifest about that thing all they want. They won't get it for sure. Because if you just dream about something, you're not gonna materialize anything by just dreaming. You can also have them do the action. Each and every one will do the same exact thing. You will see that not every one of them will make it. Not every one of them will manifest them. But this lie also has an escape. It will say, well, you haven't manifested that enough, right? You are still living in that mindset, right, that you're not worthy, right, which is blocking the so-called manifestation, right? There is always this twisting, right? If something doesn't work, it's always your fault, right? This kind of sounds narcissistic, and the reason why, one of the reasons why I don't embrace the idea of a flow of distraction. I don't need to dream about things, I just work towards them. And when things don't work, right, the way I would want, well, I kind of don't want things. The impulses are there, okay? You have to be conscious of the fact that you want certain outcomes. When you want certain outcomes, it's better not to attach yourself to the outcome, but rather focus on the work. Results will always come. Now, the point is, if they don't come in a way you would want, obviously you would feel disappointed, right? Regrets. And then you also have the self-doubts, right? Which parents and older generations most likely inflict upon you. And let's not forget the main culprit, which is school, right? Have I done the right choice? Is this the right thing, right? Fear of failure. What if I fail, right? Everything that triggers unconsciousness is a fear. Ultimately, there is a fear behind each and everything that keeps you unconscious. And technically, all the distractions that you have in your life, well, they are nothing else than coping mechanisms, right? So, how to no longer make regrets? Well, just live life. If one can learn to live life in a certain way, without making any presumptions and just working towards what they need without being ignorant to the pains of their body, because ignorance conceals all the pains that you may have and also makes you incapable of seeing all the pains of the others, right? That's why there are so many bosses in the world. That's why there is so much abuse, because people have simply forgotten or are no longer capable, let's say, well, both are true. People are no longer capable of, being sensitive, because by not being sensitive, there is no pain that you can see, right? So I will leave this video as short as this, because, well, it's more important that I leave videos short instead of speaking hours on end on them as I once used to. Okay, so hopefully you found this one introspective enough. You are appreciated. Take care. Ferenc Board signing out.